collect art because, what do you think? Memories, okay. What else? Value.
Investment.
Yes. Collecting art has value. Lots and lots and lots and lots of that. So there's money there. But anyway, also, what else do you think? People collect art because?
Investment.
Because?
Investments.
Investments, okay, that's investments, value, because they like art. Here's a collector right here. Why do you collect?
Well, some of it is aesthetics, and some of it like that father-son piece there. You know, it may make you remember your father. Like, I have a piece that my mother once from a local artist that said, you know, that makes me think of when your father was taking the boys fishing.
Right, so there are lots of reasons why not. Why do you collect? Put you on the spot.
Put me on the spot. I collect, I think primarily because I'm an artist. And so the visual triggers and clues and sensibility is what appeals to me. I'm a fabric artist as a costume designer, so I have a lot of fabric art, much of which isn't here. I think only 3 pieces here or 2 pieces. And I love photographs. But this one is curated to be a reflection of African American art. And though some of the artists are not black, they are photographing or painting about things that concern black people or areas that black people live in or conditions under which black people function. So there's a lot of women in it, I notice. A subject that appeals to me. So I collect art because I'm an artist and I like to live with it.
3 things. She collects art because she likes to live with it. That's important. Most collectors love living with art on a day-to-day basis. They love getting up in the morning. They love walking around. There are certain pieces that when they go to bed at night, they close their eye on that piece, and then when they wake up in the morning, they open up and there's that same piece, and it just brings them joy. Or peace, right? I know I have. My yeah. Right. So there are lots of reasons they collect because they like. They collect because of wanting to support artists. Because collectors are very important in the community in the fact that collectors support artists and they validate what the artist does. And that's critically important. Many times you have individuals who think that being an artist only means that you're going to starve, or you're going to you're going to eat ramen noodles for the next 30 years. But that's no longer true. You live in a truck or the back of your car and schlep your art around. Well, that's no longer true. Artists make very good living. You know, artists who really focus on it and have something to say make a very good living. Now, one of the things we're going to do, because we're going to kind of walk around and kind of look at stuff and kind of do things, we're going to go and we're going to start this tour where you can just kind of stay there and then turn around and look where we are. Because we're going to focus, I think, in this room on some very important pieces first, and then go into some other spaces. But because my favorite artist, and artists have artists who they love, who are their favorite. This show, when we unpacked it, we helped, and I work with the Ellington White Community Development Corporation that has the Ellington White Gallery, and so we work with the Arts Council in helping them do unload exhibitions and things like that. So when the crate came off and the lid came off and there was a Charles White painting, I almost fainted. Because Charles White is my most favorite artist. I love Charles White. And here is a painting on this side. So we're going to go over here and start with this piece of art. So stay where you are. Just turn around this way and we're going to walk through.
Had you seen this before?
No, I'm familiar with okay, you stay there and I'll stay here. Okay. And I've seen this one before, not this one, no. I was familiar with Charles White all my life as a graphic designer, drawer. He is the best drawing person in the world. He can draw. And so many of his works that I was familiar with were the large charcoal drawings, Images of Dignity, which is this series comes from. And when I was at the White House for a reception once, they were honoring the 10 artists, Romare Bearden, Ernie, Crichlow, and a group of artists. And the Corcoran exhibition had the Charles Whites in many of those. So we went from the White House to the Corcoran for the reception under President Carter and that. And then you walk in and there's these huge drawings of Charles White. And many of the artists were there, Charles White wasn't there. But this comes from a series of images that he was doing called Images of Dignity. And what all of these artists in this room, and tell me shut up when you're because I'm passionate about this stuff. What all the artists in this room come from a period, not all of them, some of them are new and contemporary, but they come from a period where artists needed to validate that images of black people are important, that black people have lives that are extremely rich, valuable, positive, and just phenomenal. Every black person does not live in poverty. And you have to show that as when you look here, or you look at this painting, or you look at Ernie Crichlow. She's wearing a necklace. Here are 3 young ladies or 4 people in Harlem that are probably going to church or going to school. And she's got glasses on, so she's educated. So they tell stories. This painting here for me, in this Images of Dignity, shows a solemn, solitary figure with a rose who is simply elegant. It's an elegant painting. It's an elegant symbol, and she holds a single rose. It's life. So this whole thing, when I saw it when it came out, I went, oh my God. Yeah, let me go sit down. Because it's not often that you see a Charles White painting. I mean, a physical, real, live painting that you can go up and say, look at the brush strokes. Look at the color. Look at the color. Is this a real painting? Yeah, because there's some brushes, the fibers from the brushes. Those are the little nuances I love, to see those things within there. And the color palette. And she is in this almost monochromatic tone that is just elegant. It's a beautiful painting. So Charles Wilbur Wright did work based on showing that black people have dignity. They have spiritual connection with the universe. That black people are wonderful. And there's this inner strength, and the strength that makes them just continue to exist and deal with all the, I almost said
To me, this was peaceful.
very peaceful.
Yeah, she's very at peace and composed and in repose. It's kind of favorite.
So what made you select this when buying this work?
I met his granddaughter because I wanted to get Charles White, and she brought 3 or 4 different ones. I met his granddaughter, and she brought 3 or 4 of them for me to look at so that I could make a choice. And she brought this one out first, and I tried not to like it first. And then she brought the others out, and I chose this one. It's huge, and so it needs its own wall. But it sets the tone at home. It's the first thing you see when you walk in the house, and I have it home. It's been home for 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, it's not been home for 5 years. Collections such as this, or the Hewitt collection, or the Mott collection, or Dr. What's his name? Walter Evans. Those collections are pulled together and they tour. they travel. And it affords us the ability to be able to say, oh, I get to see this, because we don't get to see these works unless sometimes we get up and we get in the car and we travel and we go to somebody's museum and boom, that's where we see them.
You know, I travel a lot because of the costume design, because I work in regional theater, and so I work all over the country. So I go to museums a lot. I think that I like living with art that is individual. I think there's no two that, except when I buy 3 of the same artist because they make a statement. They just speak to me. I'm not even sure always what they say, but they speak to me.
But they say something.
And I live in Mississippi, so it's the South, the deep South. So a lot of them seem to be about the South.
So that's one. And when we move to this next work, one of the things I like about this show is that many of the artists, they all know each other. All these artists kind of know each other. They're coming from a particular period, let's say they're all working basically 1940s to 1970s, you know, because artists have long careers, you know, when they're working. But I was especially pleased to see this piece by Gwen Knight. Gwen Knight is the wife. Well, she's an artist, she's a professional artist, she has a long career, but she was married to Jacob Lawrence. And so the two of them together were traveling around and basically she supported Jake for a long time while Jake was doing his career as an artist, and Gwen Knight has her own career as an artist also. And so they visually, in talking to each other, were able to come up with lots of ideas about what the work is all about. And here's the silk screen. Yeah, I got it right. Okay. Here's this here's this silk screen by this artist who is married to another artist. Also, this artist here, Charles White, was married to this artist here, Elizabeth Cather, who created these works, and she was very political. Elizabeth is a very political artist, and she did wood sculpting, printmaking, and artwork that has a political bent or makes statements about the Black experience and existence in America. And so this is the work of Sojourner Truth, and they pull back on history in doing that. Yeah, I know you have lots of Elizabeth, and got help with it too.
Well, I've done a little block myself, you know, as an art student. So it fascinates me, the negative, you know, the opposite of painting.
Positive and the negatives
Yeah.
yeah. So you see there are lots of different, Black people are not monolithic, you know. We have a wide range of existence, of culture, of ideas, of who we are. And I like this show because this show shows that. That there's just not one kind of way to paint, there's not just one kind of way to make art, there's not just one kind of way to do anything. The Ernie Crichlow, I met Ernie Crichlow in New York. So how do you come across these two pieces that are iconic and all? And this one is always in every single book on Ernie Crichlow that you can think of.
I met him too, and I have 5. One big one is not here, but 4 are here. And I met him also, and I got to see them in the studio. He just had them lined up around the wall. And so I said, back and back and back.
Yes, Ernie Crichlow was an artist who really honed his idea of art making in on imagery of the Black experience. And they asked, yeah.
Urban also.
Urban, yeah. All of these are done out of Harlem because he's a New York artist, and he's in Harlem. So he's painting what's going on in day to day. So you see, you have this painting with these four kids, 4 young people, and she's got on her white dress. So when you think about the art, every artwork has a kind of meaning. It's about a story. Everything here is telling a story. And you have to figure out what that story is. Sometimes you know the story, sometimes you don't. But it's
sometimes you make it up.
And sometimes you make it up, absolutely. You make up those stories to say, okay, this is what this is about. sometimes because it's in this context of this exhibition that the storyline drives you in this way for this story. When it's in another exhibition with some other work, it may tell another story.
I've seen this hung differently. And sometimes this becomes a very big statement of what's beside it because she's looking at it. People hang it in different ways and you get different associations and make up a different story.
A different story for it, yes, absolutely. So those are the things that happen. Also, artists kind of gathered together in groups, and they kind of worked through, and that was one thing I wanted to say. It was interesting because Ernie, Crichlow, Romare Bearden, Emma Amos, and many of them formed Spiral, a group called Spiral. And in that group was in the 60s, and they were politically active to say, you know, we need to assault the museums, and there are no galleries, and they aren't showing black art, and they aren't showing black artists. We get one show here and there, and then we don't get another show for the next 10 years. You know, and so this is not gonna work. So they formed a gallery called Sincade Gallery in New York City. And they worked to have that going. So that gallery is developed to show up and coming artists and new and interesting artists. So they're all collaborating.
What you feel about this exhibition then? For me?
Oh.
I would love that
I'm
because you're
making it up
teaching me
as
so
I go.
much about it.
Okay.
You should write it down for me.
I'll do that. And so, you know, all this is coming. So they're all working together, and they're thinking about art and making art. Over here is a beard. Let's go to the beard. In this room, and there's some others in the other rooms that are really better. So here we have, when I'm mentioning Ernie Crichlow, then we have a Romare Bearden here. This is called the Caribbean Idol, and it's mixed media collage on board. Most of Bearden's works are small, very intimate. Can we pull a piece off the wall just to talk about and put it back?
It's up to the collector.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
Well, because the two that he's about to show are collages, and they're very important to me. The way I work when I do my costume renderings
If
is
you could
this
hold
one.
this,
Sure.
and I'll do this. Okay, this one's heavier. I shouldn't have had it up there. So, here we have 3 works by an artist entitled Romare Bearden. His name is Romare Bearden. And you have this work, and this work. What do you see in these works before I even talk about them? Color. Thank you. You get it. You see this wonderful dynamic color. And you see the use of mixed media. These are collage works. And
He has pieces cut up from magazines. This bird in this one that is a whole bird from a magazine, and the figure is painted. Well, she actually is pasted on, cut out from something, and he drew on top of that. So it's very rich and has a lot of depth. That's what I liked about them, and they're very ritualistic.
yes,
It's just a lot like a theater piece. The theatrical.
absolutely. They're like theater sets and little small things. But I love them because I'm a painter who likes to use lots of color, and I love washes and do watercolor washes and things like that. And when I was studying Bearden's work earlier, you could only see it in imagery, like in books and things like that. And I was always wondering, how the heck did he do these? How does this color work? How does that? And one year I was working on a catalog for Dr. Walter Evans out of Detroit. He has a large Bearden collection because Bearden would come to Detroit a lot. Elizabeth Capital. Detroit was a good, big black art community, and a lot of people would come. And so he said, Dwight, I want to do this catalog. I said, okay, that's fine. So he says, come by my house and pick up all these works. So I picked up about 25 works of art to take and have them photographed. And then I was able to hold the Beardens in my hand and then examine them. Say, oh, now I get it. He's using something called Colley-Lee paper, which is a flat graphic design paper that graphic designers use. And it makes a lot of sense because when you put water on Colley-Lee paper, it gives this nice flow of textures and movement. And it also gives you flat colors that he uses. As you can see, a lot of these colors are kind of flat, but then he paints into them and paints over them again.
This one is full of that.
Full of those kind of, and he tells these stories and this kind of fluid that's happening through there. And so these are very important when you see original Bearden works, that you have this. How much time have I got? I will talk forever. Y'all.
Take your time, brother, like church. Take your time.
Now you need to tell me. I tell my students all the time, you need to stop me because I won't stop. Keep going.
Let's get I'm learning a lot more about it.
Okay. So you have he cuts out stuff out of magazines and newspapers. He uses Colley-Lee, and then he paints on top of it. He takes them apart, he cuts them, and he makes the scene. He creates the scene based on all of this. Now I got a story that Reggie Gammon told me. The artist Reggie Gammon. I don't know if this is true or not. But when they were the Spiral group of artists that were meeting, because they would meet and they would be politically active, and Reggie was saying that they were at a meeting at Romare Bearden's studio, and Bearden had these little pieces like this that he was working on that he hadn't shown yet. And so, as most artists, they're down on the floor, around the floor, that kind of thing, and they're talking,